Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys and assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And it is Friday. Therefore, it is our stories for children. And we're lucky. In fact, we're enormously, incredibly lucky tonight to have, or this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are in this big wide world. I have no idea where the time is where you're watching from. We have Michael Kerins for the first time at the cafe. Could we have a huge round of applause? Thank you very much, Michael. I leave the and Louis. Hello, Louis. We always recognise Louis. Louis is our most loyal supporter. So he has been coming since the beginning of lockdown to these Friday nights, and has rarely missed unless he's in Mongolia or somewhere. So. So Michael, over to you.
Thank you very much, John. So I see that Kira and Georgia are here from Belgium. So I'm going to tell the story directed kind of for them, because my son Dominic is a godparent there for these girls, one of these girls. So this is a story just for you guys in Belgium. And it's a story set here in Scotland, where I live, that I wrote for my own goddaughter, Dominic's cousin, Alison. Her name is Alison Julie, and the story is called Julie's Teddy Takes Heart. And I don't think anybody here knows it. It's a kind of family story that I don't tell too often in public, but since Kira and Georgia are my foreign family, here you go. Once there was a girl named Julie, and she lived with her mum and her young sister in Edinburgh. And it was this time of year in November where it was cold and damp, and the place was just horrible. And they were coming back from putting things into the shop. They were taking things back to the shop instead of buying things. They were taking them back to the shop because some of it had been broken. And then they went on the bus to come home. They went, as you can do in Britain very easily, go into the bus and go upstairs. And Julie was sitting in the seat behind her mum because the mum had the wee sister. And Julie wanted to look out the window. And they went along. Now, as you go along this big street in Edinburgh, it's called Princess Street. On one side of the road, high up, higher than high up, is an enormous castle. On the other side of the road, there's lots of fancy shops. And going along there, Julie looked into these shops, and all the stuff there was not just expensive, it was very expensive, like unbelievably expensive. So as the bus changed direction, because they were building a new tram thing in Edinburgh, there was roadworks and there was confusion, and the bus changed direction and started to go into side streets. Julie, her mum and her sister had never been in that place before. And as they were going there, they stopped at different bus stops. Some of them weren't even proper bus stops. They were just metal poles that had been put up with a sign that said, temporary bus stop. So they went along eventually the bus will catch up back to the normal route. But just at one place, it was between the bus stop and the traffic lights, there was a queue of traffic when the bus was completely stopped. Not parked, just stopped. And Julie looked out of the window, and I kind of got cartoonish like this. She saw this Ted sitting in the window of a charity shop, and the Ted was all broken to the one side and slumped. His face, and she gave that Teddy her heart. She said, "Oh, Ted, I need to get you." So she said to Mum, "I want to buy that Teddy." And the mum looked at the charity shop. It was kind of grubby. And she said, no, we're not getting off the bus here. We don't really, and that was true. We don't really know where we are. And this temporary bus stop might get moved at any time. So let's just get home. It's been a fraught day. So with a fraught day behind them, they went home. And in bed that night, in bed, when Julie pulled her covers up like this, she wasn't happy. She was thinking about that Ted in that window on his very own. And she called her mum, and she called her dad. She said, "Mum, Dad, I need to get that sorted out. I need to go and buy that Ted. That Ted needs rescued. He needs loved." Well, the mum didn't want the Ted, honestly. Frankly speaking, she just said, "Well, let's see. We'll see if we can go back and find that street. And if you're buying it with your own money and you're, well, let's see it when we get there." It was a two or 3 days later, let's say 3 days later, they got to that shop. And the Ted was still there, and it was sitting in there was water running down the inside of the window called condensation. There was condensation water there, and sitting in this little pool was this damp, wet Ted with a torn face and all pulled to the one side like that. She said, "I must have it." Well, it had no price at all. I mean, it was actually, honestly, just between you, Georgia, and you, Kira, just between you and me, and never mind anybody else here. It was absolutely nothing. It was a disaster. So they had to think about something else. Sorry about that, guys. They had to think about something else. What could they do? And the woman in the charity shop said, "Well, it could be £100. It could be £200. But if you promise that you'll be good to this Ted, to be kind to this Ted, I'll give it to you for nothing. If you buy one other thing in the shop." So what can they buy? They can buy this, they can buy that, they can buy a little fairy to hang on the Christmas tree when Christmas comes next month, because it was November, as I told you. So they bought something that's nothing to do with the story, and they got the Ted, and they took the Ted home. And all the way home, Julie started to feel wet. She had been sitting on something, and she was wet the same as the Ted was wet. And when she got the Ted home, her dad said, "You know, let's just put this Ted to the side. Look what I got you at the shops today. I got you 3 Teds inside this little doll with the golden locks like this. And this is a Goldilocks doll. And when you open the doll up, there's a mummy bear, a daddy bear, and a tiny little baby bear. Why don't you want that? Why don't you have these bears?" And she said, "Well, I can have these bears, Dad, but that's my bear. That's my Ted." "Are you sure you're sure?" So they had to get it fixed. On inspection, the mother realized there was an eye missing. On the inspection, the mother realized that the belly was empty-ish of stuffing. But the first thing they had to do was wash it and dry it and just see what was what. So the Ted got put in the washing machine and went spinning around and spinning around and spinning around. And when Julie was watching this, she started to get queasy. She started to get sick, like, oh, like she'd been on a roller coaster at the fun. Oh, a roller coaster. Oh, a roller coaster at the fun fair. Oh, I feel sick. I feel sick. Then Ted had to be dried. Now, to dry Ted in the summer would have been quite easy. Just pick him up by the ears like that and put him up onto the line in the garden. That would be quite an easy thing to do, but not in November, and not in November in Scotland. Maybe Despina in Greece, you can do that kind of thing. Can't do it in Scotland. So they had to peg that little Ted up by the ears, and he was hollering without a voice. And Julie started to get painful ears there at the very tip of her ears like this. We got sorer and sorer and sorer. Oh, my ears are so sore, my ears are so sore. Then the mum had to look at it. And she said, we're going to have to go to the Dolls Hospital. It's a special place. You can get to these places. We're going to have to go to the Dolls Hospital, and I'm going to have to get you something really special and really lovely. But he needs to get a new eye. Look, one eye there, one eye missing. One eye there, one eye missing. So took maybe a couple of days to do that, maybe into the second week before they could get indeed a glass eye for the Ted. And when the mum was putting the needle into the thread and then into, as bad luck would have it, Julie got an eye infection called conjunctivitis, and her eye was streaming and sore and itchy, and there was green stuff right in the corner that went cakey and hard. And after 2 or 3 days, the Ted was good. Ted had 2 eyes. The mother stitched the mouth, and when the mother was putting the needle in to fix the mouth like this and give it a nice smile like my moustache, like this, the Ted was smiling. And Julie was smiling. And Julie just loved that Ted. And the mother said, now we need to get some stuffing into his tum because he's just a wee bit emaciated. He's just a wee bit thin, a wee bit skinny looking. So the mum slit open the back like you would get for an operation and started to put some stuffing inside the Ted's tum like that, and made it fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. And as she did that to make it fatter and fatter and fatter, there on the chest of the Ted, it ripped open. And Julie was broken-hearted, and she started to weep. Mum, 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 you've broken my heart, you've broken my Ted. It's a disaster. The mother said, we'll go to the Dolls Hospital. I'll get some of this fur. And it will be okay. I'll mend it. I'll repair it. When they went, the doctor, that's the man's name there, the consultant, the Dolls Hospital consultant guy said, no, 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 no. We're not allowed by law to sell this material anymore. It's forbidden. Can't have it or anything like it. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I can't sell you anything. I'm sorry. Julie's mum and Julie, they were on their own, no wee sister. The dad had the wee sister. Julie and the wee sister went home with a broken heart for the girl and a broken heart for the Ted. The mum was thinking about this, and she said, do you know what we'll do? We'll just put a patch in it. And you can repair broken hearts like this. They can be repaired. And she got a piece of red, which is a favourite colour of my wee guy that I write stories about, wee Tom. She got a favourite colour of red velvet, 2 kind of panels. And as she started to sew it into the chest here like this, it changed shape. And the patch became heart-shaped, just right there like that. And there was a heart. And she loved it. Well, the Ted's now perfect, a great friend and a great companion. And the mum knitted Julie a hat for herself and a hat for the Ted, just small, and a scarf for herself and a scarf for the Ted, just small. And they went off on an adventure. And if I tell you another story about Julie and her Ted, you'll already know how she got the hat, the scarf. But that's the end of Julie's Teddy Takes Heart. So that's a story I wrote for my beloved goddaughter, about 40 years ago or something, more than 40 years, something like that. So that's a good story. So, John, do I keep going or do we go to some other people? No, you need to have your microphone on. I'm rubbish at lip reading.
Yeah,
I'm rubbish at
I've
lip
got it.
reading.
Yeah, no, you just rattle on magnificently as you are at the moment, and then after 3/4 an hour, we can have a natter to you or whatever.
Sure.
For the moment, we'll I'm going to leave it in your capable hands.
Thank you, John. People often ask me, Michael, where do you get your stories? And I make them up. I pick up a pen and I just start writing. I pick up a pencil, I just start writing. And I can even make stories out of rubbish. This is an old flyer for a magazine that comes to this house. And if I take this thing and crush it like this, you might think, as you've been tempted to think, how can anybody make a story out of a piece of crumpled paper? Well, I can. And it's a story about a boy called Louis. If only we had a Louis in the audience. But we have Louis in the audience. Louis, this can be a story just for you. Once there was a man called Louis, and he was tall and strong and handsome and hardworking, just as muscly can be. And he lived in a house that looked like this. And the house was an old house on top of a high, high hill. And this house on top of a high, high hill was where Louis lived. And every day, every single day, including Saturdays and Sundays, he came out of his house, went across a bridge and went to a factory. And in that factory, he pushed and he pulled and he twisted and he turned 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 and he waited. And a bottle popped out. And when that bottle popped out, he inspected it closely like this. If there were any cracks, any flaws, any breakages, it was put in to be recycled and made into another bottle. But if it was perfect, it would go onto a little conveyor belt and go away and go away and go away. And that was what he did every day. After work, he came back across the bridge, up the hill, up to his wee house, away in the distance. And that was a hard life. It was a boring life, and he didn't get much money from the man who owned the factory. But he's a hardworking guy. He's a strong guy, and very, very, very popular, by the way. Everybody liked Louis. So while Louis was doing this job day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out, one day he went to the factory and there was a big sign that said closed. Closed. So what can you do? If there's no work, there's no money. All he has is his house. So he got a paintbrush and he decided to open a cafe. And he opened a cafe, Louis Cafe, like this. Louis Cafe. And they opened the doors and he shouted, "Come and buy, come and buy, come and buy. Come and buy, come and buy, come and buy." And even though that was a way, way, way up on the hill, people came and they bought. Two sisters, they were retired school teachers. They came with a little dog on a very, very long lead, like this. A tiny little dog. And they come up the hill. "Oh, Louis, 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 7 times, Louis. We're exhausted, we're exhausted. We need tea, we need sandwiches, we need cake." And workmen came in, and they were rough, tough guys. And they said, "Hey, Louis, we need pies and sugary, sugary tea." And the other workman said, "Not tea for me. I want thick black coffee and plenty of it." Well, Louis was running about like a crazy man, getting the tea for the posh ladies and the thick black coffee for the workmen, and he got all the stuff. But he was not very good at it. In fact, it's safe to say that he was poor at it. Problem. When he made the tea, he stewed it. The sandwiches were stale. The coffee, well, twice in succession, he put salt into the coffee instead of sugar twice. So when Louis up the hill said, coming by, even although he was popular, the people said, no thanks, no thanks. And they never went up the hill. So what could he do? All he can do with his house is sell it. And he sold it, and he bought a boat. The trouble with Louis is that he doesn't know how to sail a boat, but he's got a boat and he's on it. And he takes off the rope, and instead of taking the rope off at the quay side of the land, he takes it off at the boat side, and the boat goes away without a rope. So now he's not even he doesn't have any of these things. He doesn't have any charts or maps. He doesn't have any documents. He doesn't have a telescope. He's not got binoculars. Bit of a shambles. And a storm came. And then Louis, poor guy, started to feel a bit pukey, a bit sick. And the boat bashed into some rocks, crack, crack. And the boat started to sink. And then, when there was sufficient water inside it, and it smashed to the bottom of the deep blue sea. Now, that was okay. But in a corner there came a black triangle like this. And you would think somebody under the water was playing the cello. Dum, 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 dum. And Louis started to swim, and he swam, 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 and he swam. Like our Louis here is a good swimmer. He's got a certificate in swimming, and swimming, and swimming, and swimming, and swimming, and swimming, 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 swimming. And then, well, just as luck would have it, he came upon an island. And on this island, there was a most beautiful woman. She had long, long hair, longer than mine, like this. And she was like this. Oh, hello. How are you? Mm. And Louis said, oh, wow, you're so pretty. And she said, you're so handsome. Oh, we could make a go of this place. She said, well, I have a few uncles and they can get you work. And at that, pieces of the broken boat started to wash up onto the beach. And as the pieces of the broken boat came onto the beach, he said, it's okay, I have my job. I got my job here. You've got your job. You think? I've got an uncle and he owns a bottle factory. And if you can push buttons and pull levers and twist and turn and be patient waiting for bottles to be made, I'll get you a job in that bottle factory. And Louis said, I had such a job. That is the most boring job in the world. No thanks. I did it for years, day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, and no thanks. Well, I've got another uncle. And he owns a cafe. And it's a tourist area. Here is a tourist place, and the tourists come, and if you give them a good service in the cafe, they'll give you tips. And well, that's a good income. He said, I used to own a cafe. It was a disaster. I couldn't concentrate on it because my mind was elsewhere. I put salt in the coffee twice in succession. I have one last uncle. He's got a small boat, and there's a big island and there's a small island, and you can sail around these in a figure of 8 and show the tourists the Pirates Cave and Smuggler's Cove, and you can show them this place and that place. You can show them where the tortoises and turtles come to lay their eggs. I can't sail a boat. That's why I ended up shipwrecked here. But I listen to me, darling. I have my job, and this is something everybody needs when they're at the beach. John Rowe needs it, Donald Nelson needs it, Ann Pitcher needs it, Despina needs it, the girls need it, the 2 of them. Phil McBain needs it. Boy, does he need it. And of course, Louis needs it. And people at the World Storytelling Cafe need it if they're at the beach. What is it? It's a t-shirt. One size fits all. They got married and they lived happily ever after, selling lots of t-shirts to lots and lots of tourists. Once there was a king, and he knew that it was time for him to go elsewhere, to heaven. And he said to his son, beloved son, it's time for you to become the king, but you have to take a journey. You have to take a journey. I'll take the journey. I'll gladly take the journey, Father, but I don't want you to die, Father. I want you to stay here, and I want you to be the king for a long time, for I am young. Yes, but you are a man now, and it's high time that you became the king. So the prince set off on his journey. His name was Intaglio, Prince Intaglio, and he had a horse called Cameo, and there's a Cameo and an Intaglio fit together like a key in the lock. Well, it was a true thing that they could be regarded as a great team, a great team. Now, it happened that he had to go to places, and everywhere he went, every place he went, someone would have a problem for him. Each time he succeeded in finishing a task, he was given a ribbon. The first one was a task of fairness, about how to measure something that's difficult to measure. And the king said, well, the young king, Prince Intaglio, the king in the making, said, well, what to do is let the person who wants to cut it. They can do the measuring. And the person who doesn't do the measuring, they get to do the choosing. So this great piece of valuable stuff, maybe it was marble, maybe it was gold, it doesn't matter what it was. There was always going to be some little bits left over that could be equally valuable. So with a great precision, it was measured and measured and measured. Measured 3 times, and then it was cut. And the man who measured it said that he was happy with the measuring. And the guy that was to do the picking, he said, I'm happy to make my choice. And when the choice was made, everybody agreed that that was fairness. And he was given a red ribbon. Now, the red ribbon was the signal of being regal, of royalty. This was a thing that the king needed to have. And then he had to go and give orders to the army. And there can be dangers in giving orders to the army. But he thought about this and he said to the soldiers, you are brave, you are trained, and you are working as a togethered group of people. So you are ordered. And when he got the order of this sorted, he was given another ribbon of orange. So now he had two ribbons, red and orange. The next task was a task to decide on youth. And it's whether or not young people should get decisions for themselves or not. Do we just tell children what to do and that's what they do? Or do we give them some freedom to express their personalities and their choices and their decisions? And he thought, why? The letter Y. Yes, for both of these things. Yes, we give them the choice, but yes, we also give them instructions. Don't cross the road without looking for traffic. Don't touch fire. Don't eat these red berries. We must tell children what to do, but we can only tell them what to do, otherwise we will crush their personality. And when he spoke to the council about this, they said, you know, for a young king, you are truly wise. And he was presented with a third ribbon, the color of yellow. So he had the red and orange and yellow. There was a dispute, as there often is in these political things, about greed and generosity. And there was an anger between the two, between greedy farmers and generous people. And the farmers knew that if the harvest was poor, the price will be high. So some of the farmers were actually killing their crops and killing their animals. The way to make the price of milk go up is to kill cows, because if you kill the cows, there'll be fewer cows to make the milk. And if there's fewer amounts of milk, there are less and less liters of milk, there'll be more and more money for the milk that's available. And then Taglio had to make a decision on this. And he said that people are entitled to the value of their produce, of the farmer's produce, whether it's a natural disaster like a drought or a flood, or a man-made thing like killing the cows to keep the price up. And when he was lying in bed, he thought, but wait, it's not just the price of milk that goes up if we kill the cows. The price of leather goes up. The price of meat goes up. The price of manure goes up. No. We can't just have greed. We have to have generosity of spirit as well. So the balance was made that the price would be agreed beforehand. And if there was a natural disaster, the king's money from the government would come and help the farmers out. And once this greed and generosity was sorted out, this G was replaced for the king with a ribbon of green. So now he had red, orange, yellow, and green. The neighbors in the neighboring kingdoms were angry people. And they were upset and annoyed at this whole idea. They were battling and they were belligerent and they just wanted some kind of war. And if there is a war, then we're seeing this at the moment, they can take what they want. But only if the people who have it give up. So when Prince Intaglio's kingdom was invaded he had to do battle. He had to. He had to fight back. And they fought back. And because his army loved him, because he was a fair man, because he looked after the widows and orphans of soldiers, then why not? So the soldiers didn't just become soldiers, they became warriors. And they fought off the belligerent neighbors, and they fought them right back to the very river that they had crossed. And they said, here, we will not build a barrier, we will build a bridge. And when you're ready to walk over this bridge, with no guns, with no arms, no arrows, with no swords, when you're ready to walk over this bridge, we can be friends. And for that wisdom of building the barrier or the bridge, he was given a blue ribbon. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. He wanted all the children in the kingdom to be educated, all of them. The wise men were laughing with their majesty. We thought, what do you mean, all of them? Do you mean girl, like the female children, the girls and stuff? Seriously, they should go to school. You're saying that the girls should be educated. Well, I think everybody should have an education. Everybody should have an education. That's for clear. But we've never done this before. Oh, the old schoolmasters, they would want to have girls in the classroom. We don't have seats for them. We don't have desks for them. We don't have books for them. But if we gave them books, they can't read. What's the point of educating the women? And he said, well, there's two things that we have to look at. Ignorance and intelligence. If we educate everybody, we should iron out the ignorance and build up the intelligence. We should build a better population if they can read and choose and write. Maybe they write poems, maybe they'll paint pictures, maybe they'll play music. If they can read the music, they can play music. Who knows what they can do? But it's my wish as the king that they should get this. And for the decision and wisdom of intelligence versus ignorance, he was given another ribbon of indigo. And there he was with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. And some of the people didn't like it. Some of them hated it. And one guy had a very, very small dagger to stab him. And the assassination of a king is a fairly common thing. Surprising how many of them have died in their beds, but quite a lot of them had violent deaths as well. And this violence was a peril for him. It was an absolute danger, a real danger, whereupon he can just, and all his wisdom, all his order, all his generous behaviors, everything, all these ribbons would be of nothing if the violence took him here. So when the assassin came towards him with this dagger, he got past the guards and he was right beside Prince Intaglio. There was an arm wrestle. And the man was saying bad words and horrible things towards the prince, and he said that he should die, and that this is a disaster and you're making mistakes and everything is wrong, and why are you sending my daughters to school, and all this stuff. And he wrestled him back, and they had this arm wrestling there. And at that, the hand opened and the knife fell, the little dagger fell, and the man was broken. And Intaglio picked the knife up and gave it to him, holding the sharp end like this, gave it to him. Said, take your knife, go home. Forget about violence. What a virtuous man. Forget about violence when somebody wants to stab you in the neck. Destroy all your work. V. He was given a ribbon of violet. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The whole rainbow was built there for that king. That king's making. And that rainbow is a promise that we have that the storm is over and life will be better.
That is the most beautiful story, Michael.
Thank you very much.
And I've got a little. Can I add a little trivia? A little trivia fact on that story, on the bit where the greed and the fixing of prices and so forth. That's the word for the phrase forestalling comes from.
That's right.
From Ipswich, in fact, during the Napoleonic Wars.
Was it something to do with shoes?
No, it was butter.
Butter, okay.
Because the butter was being all sent over, because it was on the East Coast, Ipswich, the butter was being sent across to the soldiers during the Napoleonic Wars. And so there was a shortage of butter, and the butter merchants were inflating the price. So the housewives of Ipswich stopped the butter on the road, took the butter, took over the stalls in the butter market, and sold it at a fair price. And so they fixed the price, and hence forestalling, getting the butter first and then selling it as first. Just a little bit of nonsense there, but it popped into my head as you were telling that story.
Yeah, well, I think the thing about it is, John, that the point about it is that it has to be greed versus generosity, you know, like ignorance versus intelligence. So there has to be a come and a go.
Oh, I love the balance of that story. It just popped into my head as you were telling it. It was fantastic. What a fantastic stories did Louis? And you're on the way to swimming, but did you like the stories, Louis?
I love the stories.
Thank you.
What about the storyteller? Was he any good? He was marvelous.
Yeah. What do you think of Michael? He's
really good.
Okay. Well, it's been a really we have had the world, well, some of the world with us today. We've had Belgium. Kira, Georgie, hello. And Despina in Greece, and and in Scotland with her bears. The bear with the heart, and she's been sketching. Fantastic. Oh, and the girl. Oh, wow. And Phil, who we can't see, she's hello, Phil. I expected to see you standing in front of your van when you came finally onto the screen there, up in Doric land. I mean, and of course Donald on the lakes of Loch Lomond. Louis in the fens, on the edge of the fens in Stamford, isn't it, Louis? Yeah. Yeah, and Waleed, who won't be speaking tonight on account of the fact that Waleed is flying the magic carpet while ill. Get better. I'm coming to Marrakesh on Monday. I don't want your lurgy. But no, get better.
Thank you, Waleed. That's a great thing to do this while you're ill. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, no, Waleed is always above and beyond the call of duty. So that was fantastic. Would anyone like a word with Michael before he leaves us? Donald, I've never known you be quiet in your life.
Sorry, I just got a message. Oh no. Where's it gone?
I'm here.
We can hear you.
My screen went blank.
No, I'm sick looking at you.
Right. Okay. My screen went blank. Michael, I will definitely see you next Saturday at Woodside Library for the even better.
I'm going to say don't miss it. I'm going to say don't miss it because Christian Genders is coming up and that's really cool. She's really terrific.
Yes.
So we're all going to Scotland next Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be there too.
Yes. Great.
And I'll see you in a fortnight.
You will
Where are
indeed,
you going?
Phil. Oh, it's really good. Are any of the other ones from Gas coming?
I don't know. I've sent a flyer out. I've sent something out for everybody.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I'm going to be the feisty fishwife Betsy Tutor telling
All right.
3 salty stories.
Do I need to bring my arms for protection this time?
I think you better. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Just checking.
Get your
Are
protection.
you going to walk from Greece to Spina to get to this party? No,
Fly.
you're gonna fly.
And if you have a flyer for that, I'm happy. The gas thing, I'm happy to put that up because quite a lot of people are on my mailing list up there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not a gas thing. It's Anne's doing the storytelling with her brother at John's Haven.
Yeah, I'm doing it at John's Haven and the old lifeboat shed. So he's
Right, send me a flyer. Send me what you have for that. Send me what you have for that, and I'll put it out.
And Donald, I'm going to be at Dumbarton Public Library on Wednesday evening as part of Book Week, telling stories of West Dumbarton. So if you want to come,
Good, yes.
So Kira and Georgie, you're going to get in a boat and sort of row across to Scotland for these.
Lots of things happening in Scotland. Lots of things.
Well, if you get a move on, I'm storytelling in Cooter Library tomorrow morning.
No, you'll have to row really fast. Well, or you could come down south side. Where am I storytelling? I'm storytelling on Sunday in a park in Cheltenham of all places. Anyway, what's coming up on the worldwide story on World Story? Where are we? World Storytelling Cafe. That's it. I knew I was something. I've only been doing this for 3 years. Why would I know the name of the website? I only run it. So Tuesday, of course, we have our young international tellers. Kira and Georgie, do you tell stories?
Oh, there's Brett Hughes. Peekaboo.
Hello.
Well, all young people from the age of 0 to 25 are invited to come and tell stories every Tuesday. It's at 5 o'clock UK time, which is probably 6 o'clock across the channel. I'm not sure. That's okay. That on my world clock is working really well tonight. And I'm not even guest for you. I'm not even going to try and guest for you, Despina. So I'll give it 2 hours to go to Greece. Yeah, there we go. Scotland is probably on a totally different time zone altogether.
We're in a happier time zone. But is Greece not the same as Romania? Greece will be the same as Romania.
Yeah. I've just come back from there. So every Tuesday, it's our young storytellers, young international storytellers. Next Friday, our teller is Dawn Ellis, so I'm looking forward to. Dawn's brilliant. And but meanwhile, could we thank Waleed for flying the magic carpet, and of course Michael Kerins for being our teller tonight.
Brett, look at this. Do you remember it, Brett? This is from Berlin.
No way. The same one, though, is it?
Brett was Dominic's best man.
Oh, it's a very fine Berlin moustache.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, John.
Come back to us. You'll come back and tell us and do another session for us at some point, will you, Michael?
Anytime you ask, remember about the Marrakesh libraries.
Yes. I'll remember that while I'm over there. And of course, if anyone, whether they were joining us live or just watching us on the site, they will see a little gold hat at the bottom of their Goldless site of today's stories. And if anyone wants, because Michael hasn't eaten for a week, and so if anyone wants to pop a donation into the hat, he can at least get some breakfast tomorrow. And there's I mean, and if two people pop a little into the hat, he can buy lunch as well. So there's but meanwhile, thank you very much, Michael, and thank you everyone who came. Thank you, the audience.
Users,
Bye,
I love
everybody.
you. I miss you.
Good night.
Bye, Despina. Bye, Donald. Bye, Phil.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Anne.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
John.
Right.